When you think of the word Overlord, a few things come to mind for different people. One could think of Operation Overlord or D-Day, where Allied forces overthrew Nazi tyranny in Europe. Or the movie Overlord, which depicted the Nazi tyranny using super black tar to make their soldiers into super zombie soldiers. Nowadays, a more popular response to the word is but before the anime, what came up in search results was the Overlord game, which was released in 2007 on the Xbox 360 and PC. It was a non-traditional RPG, in that the focus of the game centers on the horde of minions you can control. The game is about a new evil Overlord and his rise to power as, with the help of his minions, he eliminates the heroes that killed his predecessor. Overlord is heavily inspired by Fable, the game, in terms of style and writing. The gameplay, however, is similar to Pikmin, in that you control smaller creatures to fight and interact with the environment. The game came out to middle-of-the-road reviews, citing issues with the camera and the AI of the minions themselves. Time has passed, and several games in the Overlord franchise have come and gone. But does the first game hold up?
I feel the land quaking with fear already.
When you first start up, you learn about the basic controls for your character. He can melee and use magic spells. It's very basic, but that's because the real meat and potatoes of the game is controlling your minions. On a controller, you do this with the right stick, which is traditionally used for the camera in games like this. It feels a little weird to lose that kind of control, but I never really got in a situation where the camera lost track of me. You get 4 different kinds of minions throughout the game. Brown minions that do most of the fighting, red minions that perform long-range attacks, green that perform sneak attacks, and blue that can heal other minions and even resurrect them.
Use all.
On top of that, minions have special roles in the environment. For instance, red minions can put out fires, allowing you to get to new areas. The real trick is to control all the minions to set up a strategy to fight. You can set guard markers for minions to stay in a location and defend it. The game turns into a light, real-time strategy game at times, and it's a ton of fun to manage the minions while they duke it out. Most of the time, the minions can be left to their own devices, but there are times where you need to take direct control to get them through a situation. If you're familiar with the RTS genre, you know that leaving your own units on their own can spell disaster. The minions themselves are hilarious. They'll snarl, laugh, and say unhinged things like a proper minion of an evil overlord should. You can even see them interact with the environment at random points while going through an area.
Greens.
When a minion dies, you need to find a replacement, which you can do by killing enemies in the world for life force. 1 life force means 1 more minion you can call upon to bolster your numbers. The brown ones are the most common. There's even a farm in the first area where you can kill sheep for the brown life force. I'm not going to get cancelled by PETA, right? With its use of dark humor, the game is a satire of the fantasy genre. For some writers, it's tough to pull off, but not if you're Rihanna Pratchett, daughter of the great Terry Pratchett. Rihanna has quite the pedigree when writing for games as well. Her credits include 2013's Tomb Raider, BioShock Infinite, and Mirror's Edge. How is it a satire of the fantasy genre? Well, for one, it shows what can happen after the heroes save the day. The heroes become drunk on their power and riches, which makes them want even more. For example, Melvin Underbelly, the halfling, becomes an extremely fat monster that steals food and then people to fill his ever-growing hunger. Each of the fallen heroes are themed after the 7 deadly sins. Not them! The 7 sins of mankind: pride, greed, wrath, envy, lust, gluttony, and sloth. The areas they reside in have a theme of corruption, like the halfling area, which has the warm and homey look of the Shire, but it's corrupted by the halflings' mad consumption of food and the people they enslaved. Then there's the woods, which have a mystical look full of mystery, but it's darker now, and the unicorns have turned into man-eaters that skewer people on their horns. This game is from 2007, and I have to say, it still looks great. Walking through the world and exploring is rewarded with funny moments and treasure in the form of objects. Objects can raise your health, magic, and some of them allow you to increase the size of your minion horde. Even the NPCs have little moments of dialogue that get a laugh.
I'm gonna name a pumpkin after you.
Well, let's keep moving to...
I'm gonna name a pumpkin after you.
Yeah, that was a good one. Let's get back to...
I'm gonna name a pumpkin after you.
You said that one already. Crap, I forgot something.
I'm gonna name a pumpkin after you.
Some of the dialogue in this game is hilarious, but the NPCs say it every time you pass by. That gets old quickly. And if you're just trying to explore or get to a different area, you'll be hearing the same joke over and over and over again. But you do have a way to silence them. You just have to kill them. It's just one villager, right? It won't lead to any more, right? Not to worry about those intrusive thoughts, by the way, because this game encourages you to perform evil acts. You are an evil overlord, after all. The game has a morality system that keeps track of all your actions. Do you help the villagers, or do you steal from them? It's all up to how you roleplay the overlord. Will you be the broody anti-hero, or go full Sauron? Either way, I'd say it's a pretty rewarding experience, especially since you can spend your riches on upgrading your evil tower. You're an evil overlord, of course you have a dark tower. You need the fancy rug leading to your throne. Well, obviously you need spikes on your tower. And clearly you need the best throne. How can you call yourself an evil leader without a rad throne? These upgrades are ultimately superficial, but what's not superficial is the forge. You can upgrade your gear here by using gold and your minions. Sacrifice them by the hundreds, and you can get all sorts of power-ups to overpower your overlord. Don't worry about the minions, though. They love sacrificing themselves. Speaking of, if you made it this far into the video, thank you. It'd mean a lot to me if you liked and subscribed for more. With all the praise I'm giving, you're probably wondering, what's wrong with the game? I'll tell you. The sound is all over the place. You'll be marching through the Shire, fighting halflings, and expect a badass theme song to play. But we don't get any of that for most combat sections.
See the clouds that rose from those dead halflings?
Music is a big part of a cinematic experience. Sometimes it can make or break a movie, a TV show, or in this case, a game. Complete silence while you're fighting can be very distracting. How can no music be distracting? Well, for me, it makes me aware that I'm playing a video game. I'm just sitting and listening to the same sound bit of a sword clanging or my minions snickering, and I can hear myself tapping the attack button. That takes you out of the story and ruins the experience. There are games where silence isn't distracting. Take Dark Souls, for instance. The difference is that Dark Souls requires constant attention, or else you'll die fairly easily. Here, though, the difficulty isn't that high, and you're never really in much danger unless you screw up and go into the poison mist like me. Your attention wanders. Is the music good when it's there? Absolutely. Mikhail Vondenboss, the man who did the soundtrack, scored the original Deus Ex, Unreal Tournament, and most of the Age of Wonders games. He is fantastic. I highly recommend checking out his music in general. I just wish we had more of his music in different places. A good bit of music can turn levels from ordinary to something out of this world. In general, the game's sound is kind of all over the place. Sometimes the voice lines are louder than they should be.
I knew that something was going on in that inn.
And other times the sound effects are dead quiet.
Just throwing a few fireballs and causing chaos.
The good news is that most of these issues can be cleared up in the options. My other problem is that I wish we could do more with the minions, like sending them on quests to pillage places or retrieve objects. I'm the Overlord after all. I shouldn't have to perform fetch quests. I got people for that. Overall, I would highly recommend Overlord. It's funny, the strategy of using your minions is rewarding, and the story is very interesting to play through while you upgrade your Overlord to be whatever kind you choose to be. The only way to play the game at the moment is on Steam. The Xbox Store has it, and the sequel, but you can't purchase them. The game is from 2007, however, which means pretty much any PC can run it without any problem, and it's only $5 US. I'd say the game was worth the purchase when it was full price, but now at 5, it's worth your time, especially if you're into the fantasy genre, or you're into Dungeons and Dragons. It's right up your alley. Playing as the villain is pretty fun. I wonder which game I should cover.
Do not forget that you still serve me.